Okay, today's video is going to be all about the 57 Chevy based on the introduction I had the other day and how I built this engine run stand to accommodate not only this small block 350 but any other engine I decide to put on there, whether it be a Ford or a Dodge, small block, big block, doesn't matter. So I'm going to take you off the stand and show you around and tell you exactly what I did and actually run it for you so you have a good idea of what's going on. And then I'm going to explain what I'm going to be doing after I take that off the engine stand. Alrighty. Okay, as you can get an idea of this part right here, and as it goes down to where the wheels are and how it goes towards the front, and then I extended it. Where originally this was a cart of some sort that I actually got when I was buying restaurant equipment, and some of the equipment that I was picking up, they allowed me to have it because they're only going to discard it anyway. So I've had it for quite a few years. So what I ended up doing was I cut it right down the middle, but first taking off this, call it the part that you can actually push the cart around. It was a part of the cart. I took it off, unbolted it, and then I cut it right down in half, and I made it the width that I felt comfortable in order to do this stand. It was the first time ever building something like this. So I knew I needed to make it adjustable, and that's what I did. As you can see here on the bottom, I welded a nut on the slide part where you can put a bolt into it, and then giving it from this point to this point, it's roughly, I think, 7.5 inches on both sides. And then coming up, and as you can see here, it swivels, and obviously it bolts to the side of a Chevy 350 small block. And this would pivot depending on an angle for whatever other engine I decide to put on there. And to make it accommodate an engine that might be a little bit longer, obviously I put these square stock, welded it on there, and created the same type of concept where it would slide and then you could lock it in wherever needed. And made it a certain height so that if I had to drop the oil pan, if it was leaking, or even drain the oil at that point where you can see I got a pan underneath here, because this engine hasn't run in probably 17 years. So that's about the least. Could be a little bit longer. But I did kind of prep it before I parked it, so to speak, in the car. Obviously, this will be my third time redoing this 57. I've had the car a little over 40 years. And this, like I said, will be the third time doing it. Obviously, it's not going to stay the colors that it is. That's one of the things I'm changing. So after you get to hear this thing running, probably tomorrow sometime, I will be taking it apart so that I can get ready to change the color on there and paint the parts that I want to paint. In the meantime, I also went to a junkyard locally, is to where I bought this radiator, and I believe it came out of a 1989 Camaro. And the reason why I took it was because it actually has brass tanks. So not knowing what I was going to get, if it's a brass tank, if it was leaking, I could fix it. And it is a 2-core radiator, and most of the radiators in the junkyard they got plastic containers on the side. They're made out of plastic, and then, they're clamped on around the side. I figured if they leaked, I'd have to take it back and go get another one. But like I said earlier, I'd be able to fix this one because it's made out of brass. Worked out well. So I mounted this as to where if I needed to take it off and change it, it sits in the pocket underneath here. I made a cross piece go from one side to the other. And then the channel that the radiator is made out of, it sits into here. And then obviously I have 2 bolts coming in at the top. And I went off the stand where the handle is in the basket and made, say, a dash. And in that dash, as you can see, the starting components, the switches that I would have to turn on, obviously the engine start, I got an oil pressure gauge here, which is obviously important to see, and also temperature. So at that point, I also put a extra cutoff switch, kill switch or whatever, just in case, you know, for whatever reasons I may have. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start it, but I just kind of wanted to give you a rundown on what I took that I already had, and being that it's pretty sturdy and the wheels are solid, I knew that the weight wouldn't be a problem for this particular stand to make it wider and longer. Kind of just like I did for this Chevy here, this cart that I got from a friend when I built my restaurant. I needed something to be able to get the pizza ovens, which are pretty heavy, from the front door into the building without damaging the floors. So we had this, he gave it to me, and I kept it for many years, and I decided that I needed something to do this type of work to where I can move the body around besides having it on a rotisserie, which I do have. So I took this and I cut it in half, and then I made it wider, and then I put these square stock hollow ones, and I made it to where I can adjust it in the width to accommodate whatever car I decide to put on there. And then also I cut it in half going lengthwise, and as you can see, hopefully you can see somewhere around here, the bolt, there it is. And there's one back here, and there's one way up front, as to where I can stretch it out as long as I need to in order to accommodate the length of whatever it is I want to put on here. And it worked out rather well. It's definitely serving its purpose for that 57 Chevy. So now I'm going to put this on the stand, and I'm going to start it, and then you're going to be able to hear it run, hopefully. And then obviously I'll shut it off because it will be loud. Oh, and by the way, the shop cat's here. She's about to see if she can get any more food out of that bowl, but she's going to jump up there, and there she goes. She's looking. I think she wants me to give her more food, which I will, but not right at this moment. Yeah, she's kind of in charge while she's in here. I'm going to put you right there, this around so I can see it. I'm going to hook up the cable. Hopefully there's enough juice in the battery, and I won't have to use the battery charger. Hopefully. We got power. I'm going to snuff it with a little bit of gas. Absolutely. Alright, hit a couple of switches and see what happens. There you have it. Started right up. It has been started before, like I said, but nevertheless, I just do that to make sure I don't have any issues with it. No leaks coming anywhere, from the rear main seal to the front seal to the oil pan, anywhere. I can't stand, I'm sure most people can't stand any sort of leaks of any kind, whether it's antifreeze, power steering, or oil. In this case, oil is pretty much the only thing I was really concerned about, and because obviously all these components will not be going in that frame. But you heard it. Sounds awesome. The thing doesn't shake. It's pretty well balanced, really nice, and definitely is done well for me, and I can't wait to put another engine on there just to see how it performs. Hopefully a big block next time. But when this thing was built so many years ago, I think 20 years, 25 years ago, I had a machine shop do it for me. And on the dyno, it's 400 horse with 400 foot-pounds of torque. And for a 3,200 pound car, it's perfect. Wasn't trying to build a race car. I just want something I knew that it can get out of its own way. I really do love these cars. And doing it again for the third time, this will be it. You know, it's really going to come together. It's going to be something that most people wouldn't expect for a 57 Chevy, but it's something I want, something I like, and that's pretty much that. So I think that's going to be it for this video, because the next change that's going to happen actually is the name of my YouTube channel. Well, I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm not trying to have the close to the same name so that if somebody's looking it up to maybe learn something, because most of my videos are going to be the type to where hopefully you can learn something. Hopefully I'll be able to give enough detail on the way certain things are done when it comes to building them, whether it comes to doing an engine or doing body work and paint on a car. You know, I'm not the best professional out there by no means, but I definitely can hold my own. And hopefully we can learn something together and make it happen. So when this thing is painted, you will see that. You will be seeing it going into the frame. As a matter of fact, I am going to give you a shot of the frame. Again, pretty sure that was on my opening video, because I really do love this color. Absolutely. Look at that. I just love that color. And when the gold sits above it, it's just going to be outstanding. And I will be doing a video on installing the front and rear stabilizer bars, and that is the cross member for the transmission. And obviously it goes right there. It's hard to see this little screen. Maybe I should put my reading glasses on. The one thing that these Tri-5s have is that their engine mounts are in the front of the block. And I'll point that out to you on the engine. I added the side ones as well. I didn't really need to, but because I was changing the configuration, and actually I moved the engine forward 1 inch when I did this once upon a time, because originally this area here that I actually cut off, it had the section where it would mount to the transmission, obviously on both sides. They would stick out, and I cut them off. And actually, they're right at the top there, right where the ladder ends. But I didn't want to leave them sticking there because I knew I was putting a different transmission in there, and that's where that goes. So to have a the standard, you know, 350 engine mounts, which, you know, go there, I wanted to make sure that I added it to the frame. And I think the other side you'll have a better view of where the front mounts, engine mounts from the Tri-5. I know for sure 5, 6, and 7, these kind of brackets is where they actually mounted on the front of the engine. So between that mount and the old transmission mount, that's pretty much how they got put in there. But obviously I added because I needed to, I wanted to. And by moving it up 1 inch, it allowed me a little more freedom behind the distributor to where it wouldn't be that close to the firewall. I didn't want to get into cutting the firewall or beating it up or anything like that. So there was plenty of room for me to go 1 inch, which gave me a lot more freedom behind the distributor. And as far as I'm concerned, it worked really well. And next will be those items over there. And then there is, I might as well tell you about this. This is the drive shaft for this car. I'm putting traction bars on there. 40 some years ago when I bought this car. I actually bought two other ones besides this one, and these traction bar was on this car, and I'm going to put them back on this car because I think based on the concept of what I'm doing to this car, it'll fit perfect. And here you can see the original style steering wheel. It's painted, obviously, and this steering column right here, believe it or not, is out of a 1975 Cadillac Eldorado. And surprising that the spline shaft in the center of that steering wheel is exactly what that is. It fit in there perfect. But the one thing I did do, because this is a telescopic steering column, and knowing I won't be using that, I did cut this back 3/4 of an inch. It took 3/4 of an inch off of the end of that so that the steering wheel would fit in there further as it was collapsed all the way in. And the reason why I wanted a tilt wheel, anybody that knows about the Tri-5, especially 57 Chevy, and those steering wheels being as big as they are, it's kind of tight getting in and out. And I'm not a real big guy and I'm not a small guy, but knowing that I've driven this car many a times, it was a little snug getting in there, so having tilt wheel, it worked out great. And I'm not one for spending $1,000 on an unpainted steering column tilt wheel from any one of those companies out there. So I took it upon myself to just take the chance, buy that steering column out of the junkyard. It just happened to be a 75 Cadillac Eldorado. And I pre-fitted it in this, and it's going to work out beautiful, along with some other parts. Well, there's one right there. That steering box is actually out of a 72 Chevy. Yeah, and then I actually adapted some components from that Chevy, like the center link bar here that ties into the outer tie rod ends, and the 57 inner tie rod ends, the tapered shaft, the diameter is smaller than what would be needed for this. So I took it upon myself, and as you can see, I worked it. I cut off what came off the 72. I cut it off on the lathe, and I machined it as to where I fitted it to the 57 on both sides. And because they're adjustable links, you know, I can adjust it to whatever I needed. And even this side piece right here, there is the original 57 link, and the only difference is the way it's curved. There you go, the way it's curved. All I had to do was make spacers on my lathe to fit this the way I wanted it to. And then this end obviously goes in here. So between the drag link and everything and where this will be set up, it's going to work out just fine. And if I have to do any fabricating, not a problem. It won't matter to me none, because all this stuff was a fraction of the cost. And sometimes that's how I try to do things, is to where if I can go to the junkyard and snatch up other stuff out of something newer than what I'm working on, and that'll work, then that's what I do. Just like I did for a 61 Lincoln Continental, the steering box. That thing was an anchor, what was in there. And I was told by a friend that a Ford F-100, maybe 1970, 71, 72, that steering box would work. And it did. I had to make a separate plate that would allow me to bolt on the way this would bolt on, and weld it on there so that I can use the original holes on the Lincoln and be able to bolt it up, because there's cylinders inside there, tubes, so that when the bolt goes through, when you tighten it up, it doesn't crush the frame. So I wanted to keep that part the same, so all I did was take a pretty thick plate, and I made it so that it would work for the Ford the truck that it came out of, to work for the Lincoln, and it worked out just well. You know, the rag joint, it all worked out, and the rag joints are pretty much the same on this 72 as it is on the 57. And even though I'm not using the 57 tail end, it definitely matches the tail shaft on that 75 There it is. Over there, that's 75 Cadillac Eldorado steering column. So that's the scoop. That's what I've been doing. And as you can tell, disc brakes in the front, new hoses and so forth, as I pretty much stated yesterday. But to give you the grand tour of it all, and you got to hear this beautiful 350 small block run, and that actually came out of a 69 Nova SS, and it is a 4-bolt main. It's a pretty solid engine. I'm glad I bought it back in the day, and I'm glad I had the work done to it that I did, because it's still with me. So y'all, thanks for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully I can do a lot more videos and get as many subscribers as I can. And if you can, tell a friend, subscribe, and I actually will be changing the name because, like I said earlier, I don't want to be competing with other people with similar name. And I'll let you know about that as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.